So welcome. This is an information session on the Mathematical Contest in Modeling, known as the MCM, and the Interdisciplinary Contest in Modeling, known as the ICM. We're so excited to have you all here with us today, and I just want to go over a few things to get us started. We will be using the question and answer, and it says Q&A on your screen. So if you have questions during this presentation, feel free to add it to the chat. We'll have people monitoring the chat and saving them up to ask them either during if it's appropriate or most likely at the end, so that everybody can benefit from your great questions. So please do that. This webinar is going to be recorded. So we will be showing it again and distributing it for those that can't make it. And so by participating, you are agreeing to your contributions becoming part of the recording. Today, we're going to hear from a lot of people. So we'll hear from our Executive Director of COMAP, Dr. Ben Galuzzo. My name is Amanda Beecher. I'm the Director of Contests and Outreach here at COMAP. We'll hear from the MCM Director, Dr. Steve Horton. We'll hear from the ICM Director, Dr. Caleb Lyman, who's at the St. Martin's University. And from the incoming MCM Director, Keith Erickson, who's at Georgia Gwinnett College. So they just all waved. If you could, hopefully you could see them. And as they speak, they'll introduce themselves again. So I'm just going to give an overview about what's going to be covered during this information session before we get started. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is COMAP, talk specifically about the contest that you're here to talk about, some benefits to students and advisors, look at the history of the contest with some sample problems, and talk about the outcomes and awards. We'll share some resources, particularly for new students or advisors that might be helpful for you to get started. And of course, leave time for questions and answers. So we're really excited to get started, and I'm going to turn it over to Ben Galuzzo to kick things off.
All right, thank you. And once again, I'm so thrilled that so many people chose to join us today. So thanks for sharing your time with us. Yeah, my name is Ben Galuzzo. I'm the Executive Director of the Consortium for Mathematics and its Applications. And this is really just a very brief introduction, if you don't already know, things that we do here at COMAP beyond the wonderful contests. But you can see COMAP has been around for over 45 years. And really our overall goal, right, is to use things like the contest as a means to improve math education and really give all students the opportunity to use their quantitative skills to explore what happens in the real world. And so you can see that we're also based, we have a physical location for our office that's based in Bedford, Massachusetts. That's where our little arrow points right there. Thanks, Amanda. And but I'll say that, as you probably just heard from Amanda, so many of the folks that work with COMAP are spread out all across the country. And so you'll probably hear a little bit about that as we talk about these things. They're all around the US, I should say. All right, let's just talk a little bit more, right? In our, I think, yep, thank you. Oh, just, yeah, advance one slide. And thanks, Amanda. And really, what are some of the other things that we do at COMAP, right? We've got, of course, our competitions, and some of you out there might have participated in the IMCM or the mid-MCM or the IMMC that we work on with a group out of Hong Kong. So we have other things, other contests, right, that we work on as well, in addition to this one. But also, you might have been preparing for the competition. If not, you're seeing this for the first time, check out our journals, right? You can find the results from, well, results, meaning like judges' commentaries from past competitions within those journals. So you might want to take a look, and that's something you can find on one of the COMAP web pages. If you go there later, you might want to do that, where it says the resources that are available for free on comap.org. Beyond that, for everyone, we really recommend that you check out other modules, books, articles, video series that you might not know about that have happened in the past. And there's a whole wealth of information that we have at COMAP. And if you have questions about it, we always welcome you reaching out and talking to us, asking questions about it from us. If you would like to take advantage of it, use things, please let us know. But I'm really just, like I said, happy that you're here. I'm happy that you're, I would hope, excited or intrigued about the contests that are coming up. And that's all part of what we do to develop, promote, and support math modeling. So yeah, I'll be sticking around and see what you have to ask questions about, but also looking forward to hear what my colleagues have to say. Thanks, Amanda, and all.
Thanks, Ben. So as Ben had mentioned, there are many contests that COMAP supports, including a high school and middle school contest. And so if you've enjoyed the experience with MCM and ICM, maybe you have some contacts in the high school and middle school or work with outreach programs and want to involve them in that. That happens every year in November. And top performers in those contests go on to perform solve a problem with an international audience at the IMMC, which is the International Math Modeling Challenge. So we like to just talk a little bit about the whole suite of contests that we offer. But today we're here to talk about the MCM and ICM, which is a 4-day contest. And it will start on January 29th and run through February 4th. I'll go through a full timeline in just a second. These are meant for teams of up to 3 students that are from the same college or university or below. So we get a lot of high school teams or junior college teams. We encourage a lot of 2-year schools as well. There is no limit on the number of teams that can participate from a single college or university, but there is a $100 registration fee per team. So that's a kind of a big overview of the contests. And when we talk about the history of the contests, COMAP's been around for a long time, but so have the contests. The MCM was founded in 1985. For the first several years, we only had about 70 to 90 teams. There was a very small group of judges. And then there was just the 2 problems that have persisted till today, which is A, the continuous problem, and B, the discrete problem. In 1999, we added the ICM contest. It had 40 teams in its first year, and it was 1 problem. These were separate contests, and students needed to register separately before they started. Over time, we realized that that was an artificial barrier, and we've removed that and allow students to choose from any of the problems offered in either contest. And this year, as in previous years, there's 3 problems for each contest. So students can choose from any of 6 problems, and you don't need to choose ahead of time. Last year, we had over 27,000 teams participate and used over 500 judges. So it's a very large effort for these contests. And so we've really grown over the time that we've been working on these. I promised a timeline specifically for this year. So the registration deadline is 3 o'clock on Thursday, January 29th. So you have to be registered. After you formulate your teams, you have to register 2 hours before the start of the contest, essentially. So we give you as much time as possible to be able to join us and to have this wonderful opportunity for the team of students. The contest actually starts, all 6 problems go live at 5 o'clock on Thursday, January 29th. There's lots of information about mirror websites and places that you can get the problems downloaded from. The contest ends 99 hours later at 8 o'clock on Monday, February 2nd. And then you have 1 additional hour to submit your report. So it allows you to finalize all of your details, get it all into 1 PDF, and submit it up through your portal. So it's 100 hours from start to finish. And inside the portal is where you submit your results and check the status to make sure that we've received your submission. The results will be available no later than May 8th. And so, as you heard about the large judging effort and the number of papers that we need to review, there is time needed for that. So that's very exciting to see how well our students do each year. I'm going to turn it over to talk a little bit about the contest itself and the problems, and I'll turn over to Steve Horton.
Hi, my name's Steve. I've been the director of the MCM, the Math Contest and Modeling, for the past 6 years or so. And I've been around the contest in one way or another since the mid-1990s. So I want to talk about a few things. Benefits to students first. This contest fills a need in students, especially students who do mathematics, that I think is something that doesn't get fulfilled by many other things. You know, students go to class and they learn about differential equations and they learn about analysis and they learn about other things, but they don't often learn about lots of the things that the contest provides. And I'll try to highlight a few of them here on the slide, and then I'll kind of talk about how the overarching effect of that. Um, it helps develop problem-solving skills. Really critically, it helps students work in a team, and that's not something that math students always are good at, and this helps that. It helps you apply things you learned in the classroom outside of the classroom. There's a research component to this. It's often these problems are typically, and we'll talk in a moment about some of the problems that a student might tackle at the MCM, but they're often topical problems, problems that matter in the world, problems that matter to you probably as a student, and matter to the future of the world as well. It helps you communicate results. You learn to communicate results. There's a lot of data involved in many cases, especially if you pick the data problem C, which many people do. And so I think the big takeaway here is the contest helps you integrate technical and non-technical ideas, and it helps you demonstrate and actually have evidence that you can do these things. And this is something that employers care about. If you're in a job interview as a student and down the road and they ask you, how do you work in teams and solve problems? This is like an automatic canned response that a student can have that can sort of knock that question, can do a great job with that question, because they can demonstrate that that they've done this, and they have this sort of powerful evidence that they can work in teams and that they can solve problems and that they can communicate technical and non-technical things across a spectrum of potential audience members. So next slide. The contest also is good for advisors, and there are lots of benefits to advisors. I mean, advisors, it helps, first of all, it helps advisors and communicate to their students that modeling is important. It helps develop students as professionals, which really is kind of your job. I mean, your job, you might narrowly think as an advisor, your job is, teaching or whatever, but you're also there to develop the students. And this provides evidence that you're doing that, once again. It helps you get involved with students outside the classroom and mentor them, which is something that doesn't always happen in a traditional classroom setting. It's an extracurricular activity that your students, hopefully will enjoy. The students that sign up they love doing this contest. We get lots of feedback from students that say they love doing this more than they thought they would. And it also lets you, at the end of the day, when the contest is done, it provides something that you can celebrate with the students and say, look, these students did this wonderful thing, and you can publicize that at your institution. You can celebrate it. And that's another thing that is a positive thing that you can do with your students. Also, creating some interdisciplinary partnerships is another part of this, depending on which problem you're picking. And in fact, all the problems probably have some interdisciplinary feel to them. Okay, next slide. So as Amanda mentioned, the contest, the college contest, the undergraduate contest, is essentially a combination of the MCM and the ICM, the Interdisciplinary Contest in Modeling. And all of these problems in some ways have some interdisciplinary feel, but the ICM has more focus on some of the topics that you see there and that you'll hear more about when we go into the details of these six problem areas. But essentially, students who sign up for the contest get to pick from these six. So you don't sign up for one or the other. You sign up for the contest. Students get to pick one of the six problems and submit the results, and then they're either enrolled in the MCM or the ICM, depending on which one they pick. But that's a choice they can make on the scene when the contest starts in late January. So what's going to happen next is I'm going to turn it over to the incoming ICM director, my successor in this role, and he's going to talk about the 3 MCM problems, and then we're going to go on to the ICM problems. So Keith Erickson is next, and take it away, Keith.
Thanks, Steve. Try to get my camera to work here. It worked a minute ago. There we go.
It's working.
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve. So the MCM, as Amanda mentioned, has been around for a long time. Last year's problem was had the students build a mathematical model to look at the wear on stairs, primarily to sort of help archaeologists kind of determine their use and some aspects of the life of the people that use them at the time. So there were some additional things the students looked at, such as, you know, all the material that stairs are made of will wear differently, and you can see sort of how they're used, what direction of travel, how often, if people use them, you know, if they went up and down in the same direction or on different sides or whatever. And then also the problem asked students to sort of analyze ways to test the stairs in a non-destructive manner. Again, primarily to just sort of help archaeologists determine the use of the stairs. The A has been around for a long time. Previous problems included sea lamprey sex ratios. There was a problem on plant diversity and drought conditions. All the results from previous contests and the questions can be found on the COMAP websites. Next slide, please. Problem B, which appeals to discrete math, last year involved managing sustainable tourism. There were many headlines about issues with tourism. Primarily, you hear about issues in Greece and Spain, but there are issues all over. We chose Juneau as the location last year. Juneau experiences something like 1.6 million tourists a year, primarily through cruise ships, in a city that has a population of about 30,000. So there are some issues, obviously, with managing the local infrastructure. And then some of the attractions, one of the biggest attractions there is the Mendenhall Glacier, which is receding, partly as a result, not necessarily of the over-tourism in Juneau, but over-tourism in general. So the students needed to create a model to sort of figure out how to manage that, be it limit the number of tourists that can come in, or invest money in infrastructure, charge more, things like that. So that was problem B, again, appealing to discrete mathematics. Next slide, please. Problem C is the data insights problem. This is generally the most popular problem of all the contests. The question last year was to develop a model to predict the Olympic medals in the 2028 Los Angeles Games. There were some additional components to that, such as investigating the impact of the home country and also potentially great coach effects. There have been great coaches that have somehow achieved more medals for their teams. So the students were asked to make a model based on previous data, previous Olympic medal data, to predict various countries' performances, and then sort of analyze and expand on that a little bit. Previous problem C problems included in 2024, there was a problem involving momentum in tennis that involved a lot of historical tennis data. The problem before that was a Wordle problem. That was a very popular problem. Predict the number of guesses on average for people to guess the Wordle word. So that's the MCM. I'll pass it over to Kayla now to talk about the ICM.
Hi, I'm Kayla Blyman. I've been doing the ICM director job for 3 years now and the mid-MCM director job for 4 years. And my day job, I'm at St. Martin's University out in Washington. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the ICM problems, but before I do that, Steve mentioned that all of the problems, all 6 of them, really have a little bit of an interdisciplinary twist. I think that there's also a little bit of a misconception. The interdisciplinary ones also always have some kind of math twist to them. And so the distinction between the 2 contests, if you're a student or an advisor thinking about which problems to do, reading all of them is really a great idea, because you might see something that you weren't expecting in a problem heading that you weren't expecting to be the one you would want to take a look at. So problem D is the network science operations research problem. Last year, it was called a roadmap to a better city, and it was about looking at the transportation systems in Baltimore, Maryland, and what projects could be used to improve this, improve those transportation systems. So the Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore, and there's been a famous highway to nowhere in Baltimore for decades. Baltimore has a lot of transportation issues. And so we looked at it as a place that students could really look at how can we improve transportation, not only for roads, but public transportation, and also for people on foot as pedestrians or bicyclists. And so students were challenged to evaluate the transportation system as it currently is and to come up with ways that it could be better. So past problems on this, was a problem the year before about the flooding in the Great Lakes and how do we control the dams along the way to avoid the flooding without destroying shipping in the Great Lakes. And we've had things about ideal passing strategies in soccer and evacuating the Louvre. There's been lots of different interesting things. So next slide, please. So problem E is a sustainability problem. Last year, it was making room for agriculture. So we were looking at a piece of forest that had been clear cut to be turned into agricultural land, and then looking at that land coming back into its natural form around the boundaries of what is now agricultural land. So really kind of looking at what is the interplay between forest and farm, and how supporting the redevelopment of some natural species might actually be beneficial to the agriculture component of things. So teams were challenged to model this degeneration and regeneration of land from forest to agriculture and then back to something that's in some kind of stable situation again. And a lot of times, a lot of our problems require some kind of non-technical document. So you're sharing your results out with a person who is ultimately going to be a decision maker and in the power to use your model, but they might not be technically knowledgeable to understand the math model that you're building. And so this one, it was one of my favorite non-technical things we've done. We actually had students write to a farmer. So sustainability problems in the past have We've had one about property insurance, like as sea levels rise, what does that do to property insurance? Light pollution, looking at how do we balance safety and ecological concerns with light pollution. And there was a forestry for carbon sequestration problem, looking at how we make decisions, how foresters could make forestry professionals could make decisions that about how to manage a forest in order to maximize carbon sequestration. All right, next slide. Yeah. So problem F is a policy modeling problem. So last year's question was called Cyber Strong, and it was really looking at what makes a strong national cybersecurity policy and how can you demonstrate its effectiveness. So we were looking at the policies of a lot of different countries and looking at how secure they are in the cyberspace. In terms of how many cyber crimes are committed against them and how many cyber crimes might be being committed from that area. And so looking at the policies in place and evaluating, the model was to build an evaluation model basically for the policies that are already in place in these ways, so that we could better understand what aspects of a national cybersecurity policy make it a strong one that's very effective. Policy problems in the past, we've had, there was one where they had to develop a green GDP. And so how can we evaluate how successful a country is, not just based on finances, but on how ecologically friendly they are? That's the green part of that. There was one about reducing illegal wildlife trade, so policies around that. And there's been one about space policy, like how do we keep the international peace in space? What kind of policies need to be there? So yeah, that's the gist of all of the ICM problems. And so I'm going to talk just a little bit about like what makes a successful submission. This is a big question we get, especially from students. Ultimately, the most important thing, follow the contest rules. So when you go to register, there is a decently long website of information about what the rules are and what the guidelines are. Reading that website is not a waste of your time. The rules are pretty straightforward, but reading it will guarantee that they're in your head. So big things that we look at, you're limited to a 25-page PDF with the addition of an AI report that can go beyond 25 pages, but your references and any appendices need to be done at the end of the 25th page. Something that we keep on seeing more and more common is PDF readers are starting to not count the executive summary page, so the first page, as one of the 25 pages. So we're starting to see more and more 26-page submissions, and that's a problem. So it really is how many pages is the PDF, not the page numbering within the PDF reader. So make sure you're paying attention to that. We also sometimes see people eliminating margins or using a font that's particularly small, or using the wrong size font. The contest rules actually tell you about what font size, what font, along with how many pages. So we do monitor all of that stuff and we pay attention to it. So in order to be one of the entries that we're really looking at deeply, you have to follow those rules. We also need to not have names of schools or students on there. This is intended to be a blind judging process where all it is your control number and the connections to those control numbers with your school and your team name and everything, the names of the students on your team, that's all held at COMAP and it is not handed out to the contest leadership. And so we don't see that until the contest is completely over. And so when you include your school name or the names of students, so you sign a letter with your student names, then you've eliminated our ability to judge blindly. And so we need you to follow that rule as well. Again, that's one that it can keep your submission from being considered for some of our top designations. So that's like the black and white, did they follow the rules or not? So here's more of the gray area. So the presentation that you give in your paper, it's really important that it's coherent and organized and articulate and well written. And so we need you to communicate what you've done. We need you to explain what you've done along the way. And it has to be written in a way that someone who wasn't there working in the room with you can read it and understand what you did. It's important that you complete all of the problem requirements. And I'm going to put a little asterisk with this one. If you find yourself like without time to do a good job of addressing one, acknowledging that it's there and giving an idea of a direction you would go with it is an okay thing to do, especially if it means that you're going to have a deep and thorough treatment of the other aspects of the problem. So doing a half-hearted job on all of the requirements versus a completely thorough job on 3/4 of them, and one of the requirements having here's what we would need to do, or here's the things that are important about that. So it's clear that you've thought about it, but maybe you didn't have time to extend your model in that way. That can ultimately lead to you being considered a little bit better than a kind of half-hearted attempt at all of them. But the best submissions we have generally do complete all of the requirements, but they complete them all in a very thorough way. Right. And finally, communicating the solution clearly. That's really right along with that first top idea of the coherent, organized, articulate, well-written. Make sure that someone can read it. I often encourage teams that are thinking about participating, especially when they say, we know we have 2 people, we don't know who would be a third on our team, to get someone who works in the writing center or someone who's not a STEM major to be the person who's going to ask a lot of questions and work with the communication aspect of it. They might not be contributing to the math model or the programming or any of the technical side of things, but having someone who's really focused on how well is this communicated and who is going to ask the people who are doing the technical parts to explain themselves better, it can really strengthen a report. So along with the following the rules, though, don't send your paper to a writing center or something like that, or to someone else for reading unless they are a part of your team. And that's why I encourage people to have someone like that as a part of their team potentially. You need to have citations and references. If it's clear to us that something is not your own work and you haven't provided references, that can really knock things down. You can't copy and paste papers from other sources. Anything that looks like plagiarism will flag your paper for us, and we won't consider it. And having an AI use report, again, if it looks to us like you've used AI and you haven't included an AI use report, that also falls into that following the contest rules. Hand it back to Amanda, I believe.
Yes, thank you so much. That was a lot of great advice and a great overview from everybody about the contests and the details. So students have done all this work, picked a problem, followed this guidelines to write a great report and submitted it. Then what happens next, right? So the outcome of the contest are contest designations. So we have successful participant, and most papers fall under this this guidelines. You solved the problem, you did some work, you've really addressed the problem in some way. You should feel really proud of yourself if you get successful participant. These are really hard problems and you only have 4 days. So to be able to really produce some work in that amount of time in a team is something to be celebrated. And so I think last year, 60 to 70% of the papers were successful participant, which also means if you get anything higher than successful participant, you should be celebrating. Your advisor should be celebrating you. Your school should be celebrating you. It's a really difficult achievement to make. It means you really have done something special. And the higher you go to the right on this, the more it is. So we have honorable mention. That means you've done something special. You've gone really done some sound modeling, really addressed the problems. It's a really wonderful distinction. If you get to meritorious, it means that people are identifying that you've done something special and really great. And we're getting into smaller and smaller groups of people that can reach these levels. I think for meritorious and beyond, it's something like 10 to 15% of all papers that are submitted reach these designations. And so it's really wonderful and to get to this point. If you get to finalist, it means that there's a group of people sitting around a table talking about your problem. Experts from the fields, modelers, you've gone to the final rounds of judging. People are really discussing your work, and you've impressed enough people to make it there. You should really be proud of yourself. And then of those finalists, only a few papers in each problem get designated as outstanding. These are really the best of the best. They're really exemplar work for student modeling, problem solving, analysis, communication. It's really the highest level of submissions. Any of these demonstrate that you can do all of those wonderful things that Steve had noted as the benefit to students. You have examples of working in a team and completing a project, a modeling project in a really short amount of time, and you're to be commended. With our contest, we always like to thank our partners and sponsors. And so we have a lot of math organizations that help, that are contest sponsors, and I'll talk about how they sponsor and acknowledge award winners. And so these are the AMS is the American Mathematical Association. The ASA is the American Statistical Association. Informs is the Institute for Operations Research and Management Science. The MAA is the Mathematical Association of America, and SIAM is the Society for Industrial and Applied Mathematics. All of those groups give awards, and I'll talk about specifically what the awards are on the next slide. There's 3 more organizations, the EIT, which is the Ellison Institute of Technology, Oxford, that offers an Ellison Scholars Program. We have actually, I think it's 5 or 6 students from last year that had applied through this program, were invited to apply to this program and are in the semifinal rounds to have a learning experience at the University of Oxford. So it's a very exciting opportunity for students. We have 2 industry partners, NZU Partners and 2 Sigma. They both offer internship opportunities for students that participate in the contest. In fact, 2 previous interns are now hired full-time at 2 Sigma. And so it's really wonderful to see that come out of the modeling contest. I mentioned prizes. There are cash prizes. We have a scholarship award provided by COMAP for each of the 6 problems for up to $10,000. And so each student would receive $3,000 and the advisor $1,000. We have a COMAP named award for all 6 problems. We have a new award for problem C this year for Veena Medarati and in her work and developing and promoting the data insights problem. Each of those organizations that I had mentioned sponsor awards. All of them except the ASA do sponsor an award for every problem, all 6 problems. The ASA is a statistical association, and so they only offer an outstanding winning team award for the data insights problem. So really excited. So if you get to that last final outstanding stage and win one of these named awards, it's really a special distinction. They all have categories as to how they would like these distributed, and our judges do a great job of making sure that all the finalists and our outstanding teams meet those criteria. We have some helpful resources to get you started, especially if you're new to the contest. Of course, the contest website that has so much information about the contest and past problems. The rules, as we heard, is a very important step. In addition to the list of all previous problems on the COMAP website, we also have mathmodels.org that lists them out, which is really nice in a spreadsheet. So you can see the level of the contest and the type of question. It gives a great overview to be able to look at multiple problems or multiple years at a time. The results of the MCM contest were just published in the UMAP journal. I believe Dr. Erickson had just mentioned that. It is freely available on the UMAP journal website at the COMAP website, from the COMAP website. So you can download that and read about last year's contest, those 3 problems that Dr. Erickson had talked about. They're really, you can get insights from the judges' commentary about what they valued in each of those final judging rounds, what they'd like to see more of, what was really outstanding. And it gives you an opportunity to really see what's valued by our judges. So it's wonderful. And then, of course, we want to leave lots of times for questions. You can follow us on all of these socials. I did see we have some of our Chinese students that have joined us, and I appreciate you staying up so late at night to join us. And we also have a Weibo channel at COMAP China Official. The rest are all at COMAP Math. And so I'm going to open it up to questions and maybe stop sharing my screen.